Hi, this is Popo, an old guide describing some new stuff. This is a drum synthesizer prep. I'm going to use the PO12 by Teenage Engineering as an example of an inexpensive but very powerful drum synthesizer. A synthesizer creates sounds and rhythms simulating those made by a drummer. It has 16 bass sounds, for example drum, hi-hats, cymbals, etc. There's a little speaker underneath the display that allows you to hear the sounds, but to make them a little bit more representative of what they actually are, I'm going to plug in just a little boom box. Now if you plugged in something bigger like an amp, these really can be made to sound good. But in this example, the boom box will be fine. So that matrix of 16 keys is the 16 sounds, and that's a lot of sounds to work with. Each sound can be modified using the two control knobs, and up to 16 special effects can be applied. Sounds can be set to play on selected steps of 16-step patterns, where 16 patterns are available. Patterns can be chained, steps can be repeated, sounds can be selected, special effects applied to them, and changes can be made even while the synthesizer is running. The possible combinations are almost unlimited. So how do you do all of that? In just a few minutes, you're going to be on the way. First, the keypad. The keypad has 16 numbered keys, a matrix of 4 by 4, and 7 control keys, 3 and 4, located on the top and right side of the keypad, and 2 control knobs. Most of the keys and knobs have multiple uses. How each key and knob is used to make drum music is what follows. First, the play key. The play is like starting a clock. When the PO12 is started, the clock is not running. Pressing the play key starts the clock. Pressing it again stops the clock. Every tick of the clock is part of a pattern. Patterns. A pattern always has 16 steps, where each step is a marker in time, like the tick of a clock. 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 16, then start over at 1 again. Each step can represent a beat, any multiple of beats, or any fraction of a beat, as in, for example, 4 steps might represent the quarter notes in 4/4 music time, so each step represents 1/4 of a measure. To select a pattern to work with, first clear the pattern by selecting it, that is, holding the pattern key while pressing the number 1 to 16. Next, hold the function key and press pattern to clear it. Press the play key and notice that the lights blink from 1 to 16 in order, but no sound is produced. The PO12 pattern generator is limited to the 16 steps. That is, a different pattern length cannot be selected. For example, a waltz uses a 3-count measure, which cannot be simulated with the PO12, since the pattern length cannot be set to repeat on 3 or any multiple of 3. Other drum synthesizers have adjustable pattern lengths, but at a higher cost. Like Teenage Engineering says, the PO12 is limited to the world of 16. Selecting a sound. Select a sound to work with by holding sound and pressing a key 1 to 16. For example, hold sound and press 2 to select the snare drum. Now whenever a trigger step is executed, a snare drum sound will be heard. Notice if you press the play key, the lights 1 to 16 light, but no sound is produced. You have selected a sound but not assigned the sound to a step where it will be played. That is what trigger steps do. Sounds can be selected whether the write mode, discussed next, is enabled or disabled. When a sound is selected, if it will be heard on a particular step of a pattern, the step that the sound will be triggered on will light. So if you select the drum sound, press sound then 1, and light 5 comes on, you know the drum sound will be heard on step 5 because step 5 is a trigger step for the drum sound. So how are steps, triggers, and sounds used together? The reason steps exist is to play sounds on a particular step, maybe a different sound for each step. Each of the 16 steps in a pattern is executed, that is, it uses a tick of the clock. However, for something to happen, like a drum beat, on a particular step, the step must be changed to be a trigger step. A trigger step makes something happen. To make a trigger step, enable the write mode by pressing write. You will see the write enabled symbol, a small box with a circle inside of it, appear on the left side of the screen. So, for example, to play a drum on steps 1, 5, 9, and 13, with write enabled and with the drum sound selected, by holding sound and pressing 1, press 1, 5, 9, and 13. And their respective lights will light up. Now press play and you should hear a drum sound on each of these steps. To disable the write mode, press write again. Each press simply toggles the write mode on and off. With the write mode enabled, press any key 1 to 16 to convert that step into a trigger. A trigger step causes a selected sound to play on that step when the play button is pressed. After converting one or more steps in a selected pattern to trigger steps by pressing the steps while the write key mode is enabled, the write mode can be disabled by pressing write again. Play will operate the same whether the write mode is enabled or not. However, when playing if the write mode is enabled, pressing 1 to 16 will change the selected step to a triggered step immediately, or a trigger step to not a trigger step. For whatever sound is currently selected, and in this case we have the drum selected. Repeating steps. Each step can be set to repeat the sound on that step 2, 4, 8, or 16 times before proceeding to the next step. Meaning, for example, if you set a drum beat on step 3 of pattern 1, step 3 could be set to beat the drum 8 times in that single step before continuing to step 4. Set the multiplier by first holding the step number 1 to 16, then pressing BPM 1, 2, 3, or 4 times to get respectively 2, 4, 8, or 16 sounds on that single step. Each time the step is held and BPM is pressed, the multiplier increases by 1. That is 1 to 2, 2 to 3, etc., until after, on the 5th press, the multiplier goes back to 0. That is 1 sound on the step. This can be done in or out of the write mode. For example, I have step 3 set. So when I play, I get a drum on step 3. Now if I hold step 3 and press BPM, I get a multiplier. I get it again. Get it again. Back to 1. Chaining patterns. There are 16 available patterns, and each pattern can be chained to another pattern up to 16 in sequence. So for example, pattern 2 can be set to play, followed by pattern 5 by holding pattern and pressing 2, then 5. If the maximum of 16 patterns were set to play in sequence, that would be 16 times 16 or 256 sequential steps before repeating. Chain patterns by holding pattern, then pressing the sequence of patterns 1 to 16 that should play before repeating. For example, to play patterns 1, 3, 2, and 2 before repeating, press 1, 3, 2, and 2 while holding the pattern down. So as a simple example, I have pattern 1 set to play on step 3, a drum. On pattern 2, I have it set to play a hi-hat on step 2. So if I hold pattern and press 1, then 2, then play, I hear first the drum, then the hat, then the drum, then the hat. Copying a pattern. To copy the currently active pattern to another pattern, hold right and press pattern, then press a key. 1 to 16 to copy the currently active pattern to the selected pattern. So for example, my currently active pattern is number 1. If I play it, I get a drum. If I hold right and pattern and press 5, I've copied pattern 1 to pattern 5. Then if I select pattern 5 and play it, I get the drum sound. Summarizing patterns and steps, the PO12 can play up to 16 patterns, each with 16 steps, where the sound on each step can be repeated up to 16 times within the step. So up to 16 times 16 times 16, or 4096 sounds can be heard, occurring over 256 different steps before repeating. Tweaking and locking sounds. Any sound, for example a drum, that is being played in a pattern can be altered and locked, so the altered sound will always be heard when the pattern is played. With a pattern selected, for example drums, and playing a pattern, the drum sound can be heard. Hold the right key down and turn knobs A and B to alter the sound to whatever you wish, then release the right key. The altered sound will be heard when the pattern is played. So hold down the right key, turning knob A, turning knob B, and when you let it go, the altered sound continues. Tempo. The tempo, or beats per minute, BPM, can be set to one of 3 fixed rates, 80, 120, or 140 beats per minute, by pressing the BPM key repeatedly. The selected rate is shown on the upper right corner of the display. The rate can be adjusted to any rate between 60 and 240 beats per minute by holding BPM down and turning knob B. Swing. Swing timing and emphasis can be added by holding BPM and turning knob A. I have here a pattern where every step is set to a drum. So when I play it, straight, that is with no swing, you can hear the equal time between each beat. Now I'm going to add swing by holding BPM and turning knob A, and you'll hear the difference. Volume. There's a small speaker under the display. Without plugging an amplifier or earphones into the right side connector, sounds can still be heard and identified. To adjust the volume of both the speaker and the output jack, hold the BPM and press any key 1 to 16. There you can see I adjusted it from almost no volume up to the maximum by pressing BPM and number 16. Effects. There are 16 different effects. For example, distortion, delay, low-pass filter, all can be added to any step. To select an effect, while playing, hold FX and press any key 1 to 16. For example, key number 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, is a stutter 8. So while it's playing and the lights are blinking, when it gets to step 1, I'm going to hold FX and press 10, which should turn that into a stutter step. Slightly missed, but you see the idea. To clear any effect, while that step is playing where you've added an effect, hold the FX key down and this effect will be cleared. Live record. Sounds can be added to a pattern while the pattern is playing. First, with the write mode disabled, select a sound, that is, hold the sound and press any key, 1 to 16. Then, while the pattern is playing, hold write and wait for the step to occur where the sound should be inserted. Press the step key, 1 to 16, where the sound should be inserted, then release write. The selected sound will be inserted into the pattern along with any swing settings in effect. As an example, select a slow BPM by holding BPM and turning knob B counterclockwise to 60. Hold pattern and select 1, then hold function and press pattern to clear pattern 1. Enable the write mode by pressing write. Verify the box appears on the screen. Then press 1, 5, 9, and 13 to put a drum on each of those steps. Disable the write mode by pressing write again. Hold sound and press 4 to select a hi-hat as the active sound. Press play to hear the drum on steps 1, 5, 9, and 13. Hold write, and when step 7, 5, 6, 7, when step 7 lights, press 4, the hi-hat. The hi-hat sound now is heard every time step 7 lights.